I swear, if I had $1 for every time someone told me to replace my fake arm with Wolverine's claws, I could probably buy my own adamantium skeleton. The Wolverine. Now, the Wolverine stars Hugh Jackman reprising his role as the iconic Wolverine from the X-Men saga. Now, I will get this straight off the bat, I've never been a humongous X-Men fan. I've never looked that deeply into the comics or the TV show itself. I do remember clips of it, bits and pieces in episodes, and Wolverine is among the most popular characters. I did, however, play the X-Men Origins Wolverine game when it came out. I had a lot of fun with that, even though I heard the movie pretty much, well, sucked. And I also have never seen the previous X-Men films. I heard 1 and 2 are good, and the third one was, in the best case scenario, I've heard it is meh to absolutely terrible. And however, I did see X-Men First Class, and I had a lot of fun with that. So I kind of was going into Wolverine a little bit in the cold, what shall we say. I'm not the most versed X-Men fan. I wouldn't even call myself an X-Men fan, even though I would like to look more into it. Now, the story of the Wolverine focuses on Hugh Jackman's character, Wolverine, as he is sort of after the events of X-Men First Class. He's become a bit of a loner, a bit of a hermit. He doesn't want anything to do with society. He's constantly having nightmares and regrets after the events of X-Men 3. All of a sudden, he goes into town and runs across this young Japanese woman who is working for an employer of a man he once saved from the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. He sends her and asks him, say, hey, my employer wants to thank you for saving him all those years ago. He wants to thank you in person, so will you please come to Japan so that way he can say his goodbye in person. And so Wolverine goes to Japan, he meets the employer, sees the man who he saved all those years ago, and he gives him an offer and saying, eternity can be a curse for you, Logan. I know what you've been through. Allow me to make you mortal. Allow you a chance to die and end your curse of eternity. And so, during the course of the story, Wolverine suddenly starts to feel a little bit strange. He's not able to regenerate as quickly, and he's starting to feel like his powers are waning. He doesn't exactly know why or how. He doesn't feel like they should be. And so he's trying to unravel the mystery of why his powers are fading away and potentially figure out what is going on with his body and if he can ever, or if he wants to, become the fully regenerative, healing Wolverine again at his full power. Now that I've taken care of the story, let me go ahead and dive into what I may or may not have liked about this movie. I'm sure X-Men fans probably know this or already admit to this for a while, but Hugh Jackman as Wolverine absolutely kills it. He is great. I absolutely enjoyed watching him as Wolverine, being so visceral, so brutal, and so intense and visceral as this character. I mean, I was scared sometimes when I was watching the Wolverine, and I was like, I would not want to be on the wrong end of that guy's claws if I ever made him mad. It's just, there were so many fights in this movie, especially with the setting of Japan, all these samurai fights, there's so many blades clashing and his claws are going up against them. It's just so much fun to see all this action centered around this character and seeing how he deals with the loss or waning of his powers and seeing, like, what does he do? How is he going to respond to this? And just like a predator, the more desperate the situation gets, the more visceral and aggressive the predator can become. And that really shows in sort of an animalistic nature of the Wolverine itself. I really dug that about this movie. Probably my biggest surprise as well with the movie is the fact that it was able to have a sense of humor about itself. Now, I don't mind a movie that tries to be 100% serious all the time and try to take its subject matter with a great amount of respect and the seriousness it deserves. However, you can have a sense of humor about itself. In fact, it's more respectable if you learn how to make fun of yourself. And so the fact that the movie, even though it didn't have to be funny at certain points, the fact that it was able to have a sense of humor about itself, go the extra mile and acknowledge that sometimes of how funny or serious it may or may not be, is respectable, and I found it infinitely more enjoyable. And there were certain lines in this movie, even though it may have been a little bit morbid once you take it in context, I was laughing my ass off, and I was having a lot of fun with it, had a great time watching it. And going off of that notion, the action scenes are a lot of fun too. I mean, I've heard some people complain that the last maybe like 20 to 30 minutes about this movie are a little bit too comic book-ishy or cartoonish. Now, I have to make a counterpoint about this one because, let's be honest folks, this is a comic book movie. This is a Marvel movie. This is a subject about the Wolverine from the X-Men. He's a comic book character. Getting mad or upset over the fact that the fight scene is a comic book is kind of silly. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit anyone else's opinion. If you didn't like the fight scenes, those are fine. However, getting mad over a subject matter being adapted to a film and being true to its subject matter, even though it may sound like a comic book and more like a film than a film, is not something to get upset at. If anything, it's being more respectful to it. And I will admit, they did look very comic book-ishy, but I didn't mind that. I understood the subject matter. I understood the fact that, yes, this is a comic book movie, and I'm not mad at it for that. You know the rule of cool, how something is so awesome, so much fun, it's so enjoyable, that almost any point of criticism you throw at it doesn't really matter. That was kind of what I was thinking at the end of this movie. I was like, you know what? This is meant to be enjoyable. This is meant to be fun. Let's just have a good time watching this. And I had a blast doing so. Also, the scenery of this movie was absolutely beautiful. I mean, Japan was an excellent location for this movie. Not to mention, there was this one particular scene that takes place on a train, and I'm sure you've seen it in the trailers, that was, to me, a lot of fun. And it was still also pretty funny. The fact that, again, going back to the humor, that Wolverine was able to have a sense of humor with his own powers and with an environment, just progressively dabbling little bits and pieces of humor throughout the course of the movie was really good. And it just felt like this was understanding what the subject of the Wolverine really was, having a lot of fun with the character, and just having an overall good time with it. And the theme itself for the movie was actually very interesting in that it is a rather hard, or at least a really scary idea of knowing living forever, and the idea of Wolverine being so alone, how everyone he loved at some point or another is eventually going to die and he will live on. The fact that this theme was dealt with in the Wolverine, seeing like what was Wolverine going to do, and that was he going to accept his mortality? Was he going to let his powers be waned? Was he going to allow himself to die if he did? Just that idea alone of, would you accept death if you were allowed to have the choice for it, or accept immortality if it was forced upon you? Just that idea or theme alone was very interesting, and I love the fact that it went and addressed that. So all this together with Hugh Jackman being so much fun as the Wolverine, the fight scenes were beautiful, the scenery was fantastic, and not to mention the score itself was a lot of fun too. I mean, granted, it wasn't like a super memorable theme, but it was a nice companion piece to the film, and it served its purpose nicely. Not to mention the theme itself and the sense of humor it had about itself was very enjoyable. This is definitely one of the most fun times I've had at the movies this year. I had a blast watching The Wolverine, and I would definitely go see it again. So overall, I would have to say The Wolverine is absolutely worth every penny. So there you go, everybody. That is my review of The Wolverine. I hope you enjoyed this review. And let me ask you something. Since I have never seen the other X-Men movies, would you recommend that I check them out? And which ones in particular are your favorite X-Men movie and why? Without spoilers, if you can do so. Oh, one more thing I have to mention for you folks. Please, by whatever means necessary, if you go see this movie, sit during the credits. I guarantee you will be shocked at what you see. It is really cool. It actually made me gasp at the end of the movie. So until next time, everybody, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. You name it, I can play it.